Imagine a kid in a gray hoodie sitting in a Harvard dorm room, just typing away while the rest of the world sleeps. He's not exactly the guy you'd pick to be the king of the world, right? It's hard to believe. But fast forward a couple of decades, and that same kid is deciding what 3 billion people see on their screens every day. We're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, the man who turned a college project into an empire so massive it's basically its own country. Seriously, how did this even happen? How did a computer science nerd become one of the most powerful and most controversial and influential humans on the planet? It's a wild ride filled with genius moves, shady decisions, and a whole lot of oops moments. Before the billions, there was a little thing called Face Smash. You guys won't believe the chaos this caused on campus. Back in 2003, Mark decided it would be a good idea to hack into Harvard's student databases, grab photos of his classmates, and put them on a website where people could vote on who was hotter. Yeah, it was as problematic as it sounds. Within hours, the site was so popular it crashed Harvard's entire network. The university was not amused. They hauled him in front of the board, and he got kicked out of his comfort zone before his career even started. But that scandal was the spark. It showed him how much people love to look at and obsess over each other online. He realized that the internet wasn't just for information. It was for people watching and social validation. Now, if you've seen the movie, you probably think Mark is this ruthless, cold-hearted jerk who treats his friends like a line of code. But was he really that guy, or was he just a misunderstood genius with a plan for global domination that he couldn't quite explain to people who didn't get it? It's the ultimate mystery of Silicon Valley. Some say he was just a socially awkward kid who wanted to connect, while others swear he was a cold-blooded shark from day one. Whatever the truth is, the momentum was unstoppable. When the Facebook launched in early 2004, it spread like a wildfire. First it was just Harvard, then the Ivy League, and then suddenly almost every single college in America was hooked. But Mark was ambitious. He knew that to truly conquer the world, he had to leave the ivy-covered walls of Massachusetts. So he packed up, headed to the streets of Silicon Valley, and never looked back. This was the moment everything changed. While other platforms like MySpace were busy with glittery backgrounds, Mark was building a clean, exclusive world that felt like the future. He realized his project was going to kill MySpace and change the way we live. He wasn't just building a website, he was building a global addiction. Think about the power this man holds now. He doesn't just own Facebook, he owns Instagram and WhatsApp too. That's a network covering almost every aspect of our digital lives. Every time you post a selfie or send a message, Zuck is there, collecting that data. He knows who your friends are, where you go, and probably what you're gonna buy before you do. It's a level of influence that kings could only dream of. But did he build this empire all by himself, or did he leave a trail of betrayed friends in his wake? Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Because things are about to get juicy. Rumors say some of his closest partners ended up with nothing while he became a billionaire. Did he really steal the idea, or was he just the only one smart enough to execute it? Stay tuned, because the real battle was only beginning, and things are about to get very, very complicated very soon, right about now indeed. The transition from a messy dorm room to the high-stakes boardrooms of Silicon Valley wasn't just about coding, it was about surviving a literal battlefield of lawsuits and broken bridges. If you think building a billion-dollar company is all high fives and pizza parties, you haven't heard about the Winklevoss twins. Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss were everything Mark wasn't. Tall, athletic, Olympic rowers, and born into the kind of wealth that opens every door. They had this idea for a site called Harvard Connection, and they asked Mark to build it. But while they were waiting for their code, Mark was busy launching the Facebook. You can imagine the drama, right? It turned into one of the most famous he said, she said battles in history. The twins claimed he intentionally stalled their project to steal the social network concept for himself. Was it a billion-dollar heist, or just a case of Mark being the only one who actually knew how to make it work? They eventually walked away with a $65 million settlement, which sounds like a lot until you realize the company is now worth hundreds of billions. Talk about a bitter pill to swallow, but the Winklevoss drama was nothing compared to what happened with Eduardo Savarine. This is the part of the story that actually breaks your heart a little. Eduardo was Mark's best friend and the original co-founder who provided the seed money to get things started. He was the CFO, the guy making the business calls while Mark was coding away in a zone. But as the company moved to California, things got messy. Mark wanted to go full speed ahead, and Eduardo was still back east. In a move that's still talked about in business schools today, Mark essentially pulled a legal disappearing act. He issued new shares of the company to everyone except Eduardo, diluting his best friend's stake from over 30% to almost nothing. Imagine checking your bank account and realizing your friend just erased your legacy with a few signatures. It ended in a massive lawsuit and a permanent rift. It makes you wonder, does reaching the top of the world require a certain level of cold-heartedness? Is it really possible to build a global empire and keep your soul intact at the same time? And speaking of being cold-hearted, have you seen the memes? The internet is absolutely obsessed with the idea that Mark Zuckerberg might actually be a robot or even an alien. It's hilarious, but also a little weird, whether it's his perfectly still posture during those high-pressure congressional hearings or that famous clip of him drinking water like he's trying to simulate human hydration. The robot Zuck persona is legendary. Even his metaverse avatar, which he spent billions of dollars developing, somehow manages to look more expressive than he does in real life. People joke that he's constantly running on a software update, but maybe that's just the price of being in charge of everything. When you're managing the data of half the planet, maybe you just stop caring about looking relatable to us mere mortals. Imagine being so powerful that you actually have to learn how to look human again. But don't let the awkwardness fool you. Behind that stiff exterior is one of the most ruthless business minds we've ever seen. Mark realized early on that if he couldn't beat a competitor, he would just buy them. Remember when Instagram was just a trendy little photo app with filters? Most people thought paying $1 billion for it was crazy, but Zuck saw the future before anyone else did. He did the same thing with WhatsApp. He wasn't just building a social network, he was building a digital fortress. If you weren't on Facebook, you were on Instagram. If you weren't on Instagram, you were on WhatsApp. He essentially surrounded our digital lives. It was all part of the move fast and break things era, a period where the goal was total growth, even if it meant smashing through privacy rules and social norms. The motto was simple: get big now and apologize later. And honestly, for a long time, it worked perfectly. He transitioned from a software engineer in a gray hoodie to a global titan who sits across from world leaders and stares down Congress. He isn't just a tech guy anymore, he's a political power player, but as his power grew, so did the target on his back. The honeymoon phase was about to end in the most scandalous way possible. The world was starting to wake up to the fact that one man held the keys to our digital lives, and the clouds were gathering for a storm no one saw coming. The storm didn't just rain, it was a digital hurricane that changed everything we thought we knew about the internet. We are talking about the massive Cambridge Analytica nightmare. Imagine finding out that your private personality traits, your likes, and your political leanings were being weaponized to sway elections without you ever knowing. The world was shocked. Mark went from being the golden boy of Silicon Valley to the man sitting in a dark suit, looking more like a stiff robot than ever, trying to explain to a group of confused senators how the internet actually works. "Senator, we run ads," he famously said with that classic blank expression. It was a PR disaster that turned that friendly like button into a symbol of global surveillance. Suddenly, that cozy blue interface felt a bit more like Big Brother was watching your every move, didn't it? It made us all stop and ask the big question: who is really in control of our reality? But wait, because it gets even darker than data mining. While politicians were busy arguing about privacy laws, a new crisis was brewing in the pockets of millions of teenagers. Leaked internal documents eventually showed the company knew Instagram was negatively impacting the mental health of young users, specifically teenage girls, yet they kept pushing for more engagement and more screen time. The old motto, move fast and break things, had finally broken something precious: public trust. You've seen the headlines, right? Parents and activists worldwide started screaming for accountability, asking if the social and social media was actually making us more lonely and anxious. Zuck was under fire from every possible angle, and the pressure was rising to a boiling point. It felt like the empire was finally starting to crack under the weight of its own massive influence. So what do you do when your brand becomes synonymous with global controversy and endless hearings? Well, if you're Mark Zuckerberg, you don't just apologize, you change the name of the whole building. In 2021, he dropped the Facebook name for the parent company and introduced us to Meta. Was it a brilliant visionary move toward a future of virtual reality, or just a desperate attempt to ditch a tarnished reputation? He wants us to live in the metaverse now, a digital world where we work and play as cartoonish avatars. He is betting billions of dollars and his entire legacy on the idea that we would rather wear a heavy headset than look at the real world. Is he crazy? Or is he just 10 years ahead of us again? It's a massive gamble that has even his biggest investors feeling a little nervous about the future. And speaking of crazy, we absolutely have to talk about the ultimate billionaire soap opera, the rivalry with Elon Musk. You guys won't believe how petty this got. It started with snarky comments about rockets, but then it escalated into a literal cage match challenge on social media. Can you imagine? Two of the richest men on earth potentially punching each other in a professional ring. It sounds like a bizarre movie plot. When Mark launched Threads to compete directly with Elon's X, the tension reached a fever pitch. It really highlights the massive unchecked egos running our digital world. Who would actually win that fight? Mark has been training in jiu-jitsu and winning tournament medals, while Elon is... well, Elon. It's the ultimate battle for the title of king of the internet, and the world is watching with popcorn in hand. But past the funny memes and the public fights, we have to ask the serious questions. Will the metaverse actually happen? Or is it just a digital ghost town? Right now, it feels a bit empty and strange. But remember how people laughed at the first version of Facebook? Zuck is a long-term player. He cares about the next 100 years, not just the next 3 months. He's building an empire that exists entirely in the cloud, where he sets the rules and controls the digital reality. But is that a world we actually want to live in? Can one man really have too much power over the human experience? That is the ultimate question that keeps world leaders and privacy advocates awake at night. If Mark decided to unplug his servers tomorrow, half the world's communication would instantly go dark. He's gone from a curious Harvard student to a digital deity. And the next decade will decide if he remains the hero of his own story or the villain of ours. As we move into this new era of artificial intelligence and virtual worlds, one thing is certain: Mark Zuckerberg isn't going anywhere. He's still that guy in the hoodie, just with a much bigger map of the human race in his hands. What do you think? Is he a misunderstood visionary or a threat to our collective freedom? The next chapter of his reign is just beginning, and we are all along for the ride, whether we like it or not. The digital crown is heavy, but for now, it seems Mark isn't ready to let it go.